Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Travels Lockdown Sessions, presented to you, as always, by our friends up in New York City, True Heel Heat Wrestling. They do podcasts, they've got articles, they do it all, and they do it very well. I always tell everybody, if you get a chance to listen to a brand new pro wrestling podcast, please check out True Heel Heat. If you got time for two new ones, I think we're on episode 8 at Wrestling Travel. We're slowly learning the ways of the podcast, trying to get more entertaining, so check us out too. But more importantly, let's check out our guest today. Kim Artlip, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. I needed to do something during this lockdown, and this is awesome.
Oh, for a minute there, I thought you I needed to do something, but
Oh, no,
you saved it at the end there.
no, this is awesome.
Kim, you run Ignite Pro Wrestling. Do I have that right?
No pro. We're just Ignite Wrestling.
Ignite Wrestling. Okay. That's all I wanted to make. And we just talked for 6 hours.
Actually, there's a UK promotion that just started. It's Ignite Wrestling Pro or something. And and really similar logo and similar name. But no, I've been around since 2016. So yeah.
Night Wrestling. Okay. And talk to me about that. 2016. I always, when I'm talking to wrestlers, I always ask the same questions, and I'm going to treat you exactly the same. So you've been in the business since 2016. But what got you into the business?
I was born a wrestling fan. First show at 5, every Sunday watching the old WWF. Got 3 W's in there because that's how old I am. On WTAE out of Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. And, I was a hardcore fan when the only way you could follow the AWA was when you went once a month and bought your magazine at the newsstand. So my dad, as soon as I could read, was letting me buy magazines. So I've been a longtime fan. But I had another business. It was a community events website. I was doing, local events and going to different shows and different concerts and taking pictures. And I saw a company and thought, oh my God, this is horrible. I could do so much better. And I turned to my husband and I said, I could do this and I could make money at it. I said, give me 6 months. So a year later, I ran my first show.
Wow. I'm going to back up on you because many of our viewers know, and at least the guys that work with me know, when you mention 3 little letters, my interest goes up. AWA.
I'll tell you an AWA fact. Okay, so I had the Lockhart brothers on my show, who were the last students trained by the Gagne family from the AWA.
That's awesome.
So
now,
yeah.
you what you said about the magazines is polar opposite from me up here in the Midwest. I had to buy my magazines to figure out what was going on in Mid-South and the NWA, because people that are watching, I'm not going to call us old, I'll call us seasoned, but I had 3 channels and 4 channels on a clear day, but my options were AWA and the syndicated WWF show, but I would always choose AWA over the glitz and glamour for whatever. And you think it would have been opposite when I was a kid?
I could see AWA if I had, this is how old I am, with the rabbit ears with tinfoil added and to the window with more foil and on a little black and white TV. So for the longest time, I never knew what color Stan Hansen's hair was when he was an AWA. So yeah, I watched that WWF. Then along came the 80s TBS. So I was a huge Tommy Rich fan back in the day. Hansen, Flair, the Koloffs. I got to go through all the really cool eras. And then when my son was old enough, I started to say my husband, but my son turned 5. I had him at shows with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Snuka. So, I mean, I raised my kid right.
Awesome. Speaking of former AWA champion Stan Hansen, that was one of the first guys I saw on TV that scared the hell out of me as a kid. Like, I never got to see him live, but I would have been scared shitless at a live show of him because he had that, the big tobacco, and
Oh,
he'd beat
so
the shit
gross.
out of the announcers and stuff. Oh, I was scared of him.
He
But
was very cool. I met him, actually got to meet him in '83, and I wanted to become a pro wrestler, but life got in the way. I ended up, with a kid and marriage and everything. But he spent like 2 hours backstage at a show, standing on a balcony in Wheeling, West Virginia, telling me all the coolest stories you could ever imagine about being on the road and eating bad food and crazy things that happened in the ring. And that was the day that I stopped liking Tommy Rich, and I fell in love with Stan Hansen. And to this day, I'm a huge Hansen fan, and everybody knows that about me. Is I love Stan Hansen, always have.
Stan's a guy I would love to interview on a show like this, but I know due to, I think, Hall of Fame status and probably stuff with WWE, I'd never get a chance to talk with a guy like that in this forum. But I would love just to hear him in his own words tell the story about running over the AWA belt when he had to forfeit it to Nick Bockwinkel. And
Yep,
I
I've
could
heard
just
that
imagine the
story.
stories he's got. Wow.
I heard stories about things that I can't say on a podcast, but
Right.
and plus I worked venue security back in the Attitude Era at a venue in Wheeling, West Virginia. So I got to see a lot of very bad behavior backstage. Kevin Nash and the Heartbreak Kid, and when I got to see Triple H when he was Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So yeah, I've seen a lot of wrestling over the years.
That's awesome. Now, do you still have any of the magazines you had growing up, or did yours disappear like mine?
I left my magazines when I got married. I left my magazines at my parents' house. My dad loved them, and he took very good care of them until my mother did her Marie Kondo and wanted to make a sewing room out of my bedroom, and that was the end of my magazines and my trading cards.
A lot of those Pro Wrestling Illustrateds and After mags, you can go on eBay and people are asking a pretty penny for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I can't afford them.
Yeah.
But I'm like one of those guys, like nobody would love them better than me, and just reread them and I do collect. I got a garage sale here and there. I'll find some cool magazines, and the ones that later on in my adult life, that when I bought them, I kept them. But man, if I could go back to, I always tell the story about in the Mid-South, and he came up to WWE, WWF as the $1 Million Man, and I thought it was really weird that they were calling Ted DiBiase Ted DiBiase, because of course my little 10-year-old, 12-year-old mind, I can't pronounce a name like that, but that's all I knew. I read about him in Hacksaw, and then all of a sudden these guys are up, one-man gang, and then watching these guys black and white in the magazine and then see them in color on TV was amazing. Not to mention, probably you do too, your very first wrestling show as a kid, when you're watching these guys that you've been watching on TV and they're right there in front of you. I mean, people don't understand that aren't in the business, aren't fans. Those are our movie stars. And we get to see that live action right in front of us. Who are some of you talk about Stan Hansen, but who are some of your other favorites when you first got kind of hooked on wrestling?
The first show I ever saw had Bruno Sammartino in it. He was wrestling Baron Miguel Cicluna, and he was rescued by a guy dressed up as Batman when all the bad guys came out and rushed the ring.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I had my Kevin Nash phase. I was a huge Kevin Nash fan, and I was a George the Animal Steel fan. And when I had my, I used to have a talk radio show on iHeart, and one of the biggest name I ever interviewed was George the Animal Steel, and he did between Jim Myers as his shoot personality, because George the Animal Steel doesn't give interviews. So that was probably one of the coolest things. But I got to see so many, and plus I worked at a venue and got to hang out with them and listen to the stories and, drink shots with Tommy Rich, and it was a fun time.
That's awesome. How about no, it wasn't so much back then when you and I are talking about watching. The ladies were more of a sideshow attraction, just kind of brought in. But did you have? I remember watching Sherry Martel, Candy Devine, Brandy May in the AWA. How about any lady wrestlers that you were fans of growing up?
Um, and I tell this story because I did a TED Talk, and I tell this story that I wanted to be in Madison Square Garden with Wendy Richter, and have my arms raised. I was at that age when Wendy Richter came through. I think I was in middle school. Yeah, middle school, probably middle school at that time. And she was so cool, and I wanted the haircut, and my mother's like, absolutely not. We're not cutting, shaving over one ear and all this stuff. And you're not going to look like Cyndi Lauper. And I was like, oh man. But, to finally have somebody that wasn't just an old lady in a bathing suit wrestling, because I loved Moolah, but those outfits were horrible back in the 80s, 70s and 80s.
Very flattering.
Not at all. Not at all
When I
flattering.
go back and watch stuff like the title change, when Moolah was the Spider Lady,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember, you're a kid, so I don't remember all that controversy that went into it. So it's always, I'm glad we have YouTube and the network and stuff like that to go back and relive the stuff. Although I will say, in public, if you're gonna be WWE and own the rights to the AWA and have all the footage, please release it. I'm sick of the same damn 4 shows on the network. I want more AWA. You know how many times I go to?
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, why do they buy it if they're never going to air it? I mean, what are they holding it back for?
But I tried everywhere I go, every show I go to, when people are selling merch, I go up. I think the High Spots guy hates me because they tell me the same thing all the time, but I still go looking for anybody's got any bootleg AWA stuff laying around on DVD.
I might know somebody that actually has AWA stuff.
I will trade for it. I will buy it. I will do it. I will not sell my soul for it, but I'll go damn close because I love having.
I used to have them all on I used to have the old VCR tapes where people would tape them off the TV set years ago. And I don't know where they went. Well, nobody has a VCR anymore, but.
That's what I'm looking for, is somebody who, like me, has some
Jim
stuff
Cornette
taped
probably
up.
has them. They're probably on Jim Cornette's attic.
I wish I knew Jim Cornette so I could beg him for it. So now so we're counting the history. You end up buying. Now, did you buy a shitty promotion or did you just start your own?
No.
You just started your own.
I started my own, and actually my first show was under a different name. I was actually Real Pro Wrestling Florida, and there was another Real Pro, and we were going to work together, and that wasn't a fit at all because they thought it meant, hey, we're going to get titles and we're going to tell you what to do and you're going to pay for it. So that's kind of how that went. And my second show, I became Ignite, and I've been Ignite Wrestling, which was my original choice to begin with. But no, I started everything from scratch, our social media, everything. So we've been here January 2016 was our first show.
Okay, and I have to ask the question.
Okay.
We've talked. I don't feel this way, but I want to know. Obviously, even in 2016, as a female, to own and operate and run your own promotion, did you probably had I can't imagine everything was smooth sailing. You had to probably jump over some hurdles and stuff. How was it? Well, was it very surprisingly welcoming, or was it very difficult?
It depended on the people, to be honest. There were a lot of people that were very welcoming about it, and there were other people that thought I was trying to blow talent. And that's exactly what I was told. It was because I don't get why it just seemed so strange that they thought I was just doing it, to get closer to guys. And I love my husband and I would never cheat on my husband, and my husband's awesome. But, you know, I had the people that thought I was a mark, and to this day still call me a mark. And I don't understand how I'm a mark, but I don't do shows that are all former this, former that, former whatever. I mean, I'm not going to say I haven't had Teddy Long on my show. I've had Leo Rush on my show before Leo was WWE, but you know, I've never been a Mark Fest. So yeah, there were people that they called me a lot of names. They tore down our signs, other promotions. They harassed us. I had a mud show promoter that threatened to shoot me in the face. That's no longer running. But you know, I was fortunate that I had Lindsay Dorado was a huge advocate for me. And when I wanted to do a show, Lindsay invited me to his house, sat me down and told me what I should and shouldn't do. And this is the things I needed to look out for. I was fortunate enough to have John Cruz, who's Serpentico from Team 3D, recommending phenomenal talent to me, as well as Leon Scott, who does a lot with Fest and Nerd and a bunch of other promotions that give me a lot of feedback on wrestlers that I'm not familiar with. But it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, we started out the gate well, and we've never really dropped numbers since.
That's good. It is. This business is all about making connections and helping people out. That's how we succeed. So it's nice to know that you jump on. And as far as being a mark, everybody in the business, we were a mark.
You know, I'm not a money mark. That's what I was called. I was told I was a money mark. And I'm thinking, how much money y'all think I got that for these guys? You know, it's not like I'm paying a ridiculous. Well, I'll tell you what the problem was. When I first started, I asked the guys, what's your going rate? Oh, it's $40. Okay. I didn't negotiate it. I didn't argue and say, well, I only got 15 or 20, or I'll catch you next show. You know, when somebody said, this is my rate, okay, let me see if I can work with that. Okay, I can. I'm not going to I'm not going to devalue anybody's work that's coming to put my company over and entertain fans on my behalf. And that's what a lot of people tend to forget as promoters. You know, that they're more interested in themselves, and they're forgetting, I got a guy driving, you know, it might be a carload, but those guys are giving up their day and driving 3 hours to get there.
Right. That's the thing. You can, you know, that's being a good promoter is that's your rate. I can do that. Or, you know what, I'm at this time, this particular show, I can't do it. Love to work with you in the future. And that's awesome. I mean, but learning on the job for you growing up being a wrestling fan, I mean, no matter how exhausted or the hurdles you're in, you had to be having fun, right?
I've always said that I will continue to do this as long as I'm having fun and I'm just getting started. But no, it was frustrating, and there's been some shows that didn't go really well that I've cried afterwards, which wasn't our fault. It was the venue that we were at the time. But you know, if I'm not seeing the kids having fun and I'm not seeing the fans having fun, why am I here?
So we talked a little bit off camera, just recently, yeah, a little bit, like an hour, everybody. We had to get to know each other. Talked about nothing that we are going to do in this interview, as you can tell, as this kind of like just weasels its way around. The Pro Wrestling 500, PWI 500 came out Friday, I believe, and we're talking on a Monday. I saw your post. Well, you know what? Pause that question, because I'll get into it. Right now, currently, Ignite Wrestling, who are your champions?
Troy Hollywood is our undisputed men's champion. Casey Lennox is our women's champion. And TAC, which is Trevor Reed and Mike Monroe, are our tag champions at this time.
Fantastic. So now back to my PWI 500. Mr. Hollywood, I saw a post, has made the 500. I know you said, yeah, of all the people you work with, how many had you had in the 500 this year?
We had 20 this year that have worked with us over the past 4 years.
Currently, Mr. Hollywood is, what was he ranked, like in the 400s, right?
348.
348. That's awesome. Is that his first time being ranked?
I honestly am not sure. I think it is. All I know is I marked out because it said Ignite Champion on it, and I was like, yeah, it says Ignite in PWI. So I do mark out on. We've had a few mentions in there, but that's, to me, that's like a dream come true. And I like Troy, and I'm so happy that we were able to do the arc that got him to the title. And he's such a nice guy and such a phenomenal wrestler. I really think he's going to explode if wrestling ever starts again.
It will. It will. Casey Lennox is a name I recognize too. How long has she been with the promotion?
Casey's been with us since 2017. She's done some triple threat, intergender tag, and then she came along. She's our second champion that we've had in the women's division so far. Our original champion was Aspen Rose, and she defeated Aspen Rose, and she's had 2 title defenses against Kylan King, who's currently on AEW Dark.
That's awesome when you, and yes, people will give the PWI 500. Usually it's a lot of people that don't make the list will be kind of like, yes, you have to kind of write your bio and submit it.
Yeah. And I had a couple guys that wrote bios and asked me for links and videos and articles that I'd wrote about them that didn't make it. But I was sad because they were phenomenal wrestlers. But, that's still a lot to even submit yourself because there's a lot of criteria for that.
Right. There's a lot of criteria. And I'm sorry, but this is a business that we learned from day one. You are responsible and need to prioritize putting yourself over, and doing this is just one of the things. Because you got to look at it not from, and I realize that I shouldn't be lecturing you because you and I are on the same page, but just my general thing on that. You have to look at it from a professional wrestling fan's standpoint, not your peers in the business. Your peers in the business know what's going on every day and how this stuff works. But in the fan's eye and a promoter's eye, if I booked somebody who's in the top 50 of the PWI 500, that fan, subjective or not, whatever that list is, if I'm a fan, I'm going, holy geez, I just saw a guy or girl's ranked 75 in the PWI. I used to do that all the time. It's been 30 years of PWI 500. I'd look that up every year, and you always look it up. So to make it is still a pretty cool honor.
I was really excited. We did a show in 2016, and because we had Timmy Lou Retton, who was ranked number 500, and and that's how we promoted him. Number 500 from the PWI 500 is going to be our show, and it was funny because one of the guys who's not as much of a fan but is a manager, he was like, "Who's Timmy Lou Retton?" And I was like, "Oh, dude, everybody's going to know who Timmy Lou Retton is real soon."
Yeah, I interviewed Puff, who was last year's 500, and I went and asked him about it. He's like, "Oh, nobody's asked me about that in a long time." And I'm like, I went through the same thing. Like when you're a kid, or even an adult in some of our cases, that 500 issue comes out, and you read that list backwards and forwards and look for who you know, and then that issue may sit for a while, and then a few months later you pick it up, going, "Oh, hey, look at this guy. This guy was number 450, and now I see him on WWE or AEW or whatever." It's so cool. It's such a cool thing. Have you had Ignite Wrestling listed in the rankings in the back yet? That would be huge.
I don't think we've been in the rankings, but we have made the indie roundup where they've talked about our shows. So
Awesome.
we were in the indie roundup, I think once or twice already.
That's fantastic. That's an accomplishment, because we're so saturated right now with independent promotions. So, getting in there, even pushing yourself and pushing the content is awesome. So yeah, I'm totally ecstatic for you having 20 wrestlers that you used to work with. Lince Dorado making a name for himself in the WWE right now. That has to be another. As a promoter, owner, you gotta kind of, and being the wrestling mom, you gotta kind of feel like some of these little feathers in your cap, like watching some of your talent go and make it on a stage. It's got to be.
I love Lindsay, and I cried when Lindsay signed, and I hate to say that, I really did. I cried when Lindsay signed. I was heartbroken when Danny Burch, Martin Stone signed. Lacey Lane, I was so excited for her because she went through so much, and Santana Garrett. You know, it's kind of like, it's like you're so happy for them, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't use them again for a while now.
What's kind of nice is you're there for that beginning stages and giving them a place to work and perfect their craft, that eventually, you know, they will come back and do what they can for you.
It's always funny to me to go to an NXT show and I'll see them lined up to get a picture with Lacey. And this show's like 30 minutes from my venue, and I used to actually run in that same town that NXT runs. And people are like, oh, I wish I would have seen you on the Indies. And I'm like standing in line going, you could have seen him if you'd have went to Ignite.
Yeah. And that's what I always say too. When I'm talking to wrestlers on here, I will try to promote an independent wrestling show and say, hey, have you been to a wrestling show? And a fan almost every time will say, no, you know what? I always wanted to go to WWE, but there is amateur professional wrestling running at the Armory next week, you know, ha ha ha. And I'm like, there's nothing amateur about that. The independent wrestling.
I don't get that part.
I don't get it either.
You know, we had Desmond Xavier and Leo Rush do a match. And to this day, that's our most popular video on our YouTube channel. You know, and that was 2016. And it's like, people are like, well, why should I come see your show? Because I don't want to, you know, who have you got? Bob from the Ford dealership? And I'm like, these aren't local guys. And I kind of wonder, like, what happened here in the 70s and 80s? Did like anybody like get into it? I still have people every month. I'll have somebody go, oh, I've always wanted to be a wrestler. Can I be in your battle royal? Well, I don't do battle royals very often. I've done one in 4 years. And number two, no, you're not trained. You don't know how to protect yourself and others. So
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, no, and I'm the same way. And I believe a lot of the issues that have come up during this pandemic, and we talked off camera, a lot of it, I believe, I went on True Heel Heat, our sponsor's podcast, and I never talked so much with my hands, Kim. I was like this, but I was going.
Camera down. I'm down. I'm actually down here, like doing all kinds of little hand gestures. You can't see it. You only see it when I get up to here. When I start doing my Bobby Roode and my Shinsei Nakamura moves.
I remember back in the day, in the 80s, when it was protect the business. That's what the workers and talent did. When I went on their podcast with all of the speaking out and all of the saturation of Bob from the Ford dealership deciding he can get in the ring, and Fred decides that I'm going to buy a ring because there's nothing stopping me from becoming a promoter and running these mud shows. Yeah. That's as much of what I said on that show, and I believe it to this day, that you, me, everybody watching it, even if you're a fan, we need to come together and protect the business from people like this. Because what it does is, we'll talk about the COVID, but my biggest fear is some idiot mud show is going to run some stupid show during this pandemic and ruin it for everybody. Not have safety precautions, not have that. And not only that, throw the pandemic out. Somebody's going to get severely hurt. A fan's going to get hurt. But I'm a proponent, and I need T-shirts, and I need a movement that's protect the business. We all need to do it.
Well, I mean, there's a show that I've seen where they had a girl that was barely trained, being thrown into barbed wire and into a table. And the girls had 2 back surgeries and she was a valet. Why would you do that? Oh, but the fans really popped. Yeah, the fans aren't going to be the ones using a walker in 6 months down the road when she can't move. You know, they are so, there are these people that don't give a shit about safety. And they're like, you know, but the fans popped. Yeah, I don't care if your mom screamed and your buddies. Most people aren't popping. They're horrified watching some of this garbage that's going on in the ring.
Right. And I know there's an audience for everything. You
And
know,
I like hardcore. I'm not saying I don't like hardcore, but my show is not the place for it.
right. And hardcore for the sake of just being hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
As an older guy, it's not my thing. I do know I shouldn't argue if they're putting an ass every 18 inches. It's just not my thing. But what I'm concerned about is exactly what you are. Untrained people. It cost me $5,000 to train in this business in 1997. Now, Bob from the Ford dealership says, I could train you for $300-400, kid.
Yep.
And what are we training now? Barely knowing how to take a bump, zero psychology, zero moves.
I'm seeing companies down here that have rings in their mom's backyard and rings in their mom's driveway, and AIWF, and I'm going to call them out, are putting them as a sanctioned training school because they got some has been or never was that may have trained somebody 20 years ago on their roster. And it's like, you're just creating I've seen too many kids that have come through thinking that they were legit, that with broken hips, broken arms, dislocated shoulders. And they're coming back to me going, hey, I got hurt down here. Where can I go where, you know, this guy won't have me in there? 2 weeks into training, taking full body power slams. And I'm, well, you know what? Go to a real school. And go
That's
to
the
3.
thing, you know, people, and there's a lot of really good talent that I've interviewed during these last 6 months that started in the backyard and went to a
they
proper
learned and
training
they
school.
evolved.
They evolved and went to, because when you're a kid, that's what they like to do. You like to play around. We all did it. If it was either in the backyard or in our living room with a mattress, putting the figure 4 on our little cousins. I've done it. I'd do it
I've
again.
done it.
You know? But
I've figure 4 and sleeper holded a couple cousins. Yeah, I'll admit to that one.
you know, one of the first things I was told before I even took a bump at training school is, as soon as I put my hands on another person, I am responsible for that man or that woman's livelihood.
Yep.
Their safety is in my hands, and vice versa. There's got to be that trust. And I'm afraid we get diluted too much, and that's where we have, you know, people are going to get hurt. There's going to be lawsuits. I would like it to have, I'm not advocating for everybody to pay the government a bunch of money to do it, but we've got to come up with a better way of keeping everybody in there trained, safe, and less of these outlaw promotions, but it's going to build everybody else up. I think there is money to be made when everybody's doing it right, correctly. And we have that solid independent wrestling foundation, and we start building up from there. That's my rant for the day.
But that comes back on the promoter. Seriously. The promoters need to be screening people and making sure that they're trained and qualified. And, you know, not just, I've always wanted to be, or I want my kid to see me in the ring. I trained 8 years ago and I just want to do one last hurrah. No, you're not Eric Stevens, who's a fitness trainer that can work. You're some guy that's still out of shape and wasn't well trained to begin with. But, you know, the problem with a lot of these mud shows and these they're even selling shirts promoting the fact that they're mud shows. It's like, really? Seriously? It's like,
do you get a lot of people going, hey, I don't want to wrestle, but I could be the best manager ever?
yes.
That's got to be every promoter.
Oh my God. The problem was we took the microphones away from managers, and we had a couple people that I have one rule. I'm in a new venue. They're very tentative about us being there. Do not insult them. First thing the kid does, grab the mic, insults the venue, insults their staff, insults the fans. I said, you actually might actually learn a little psychology, and you could get over your wrestler and stuff without coming in and saying everybody smells and are drunks and are losers and they have meth.
Putting down the city. Like there's a lot to be learned. Let me talk about, because I want to get off this topic because I want to focus on Ignite Wrestling. The COVID pandemic. I was in Toronto, Canada on February 28th and 29th, and the news was going absolutely nuts. And I actually went to the airport probably 12 hours early because I was literally going, I don't want to be stuck in another country. Things are going crazy. When was the last time that Ignite ran a show before the pandemic?
January. We did a show in January. We were supposed to have run, I believe it was like May 15th. The venue didn't open until that particular day, but could only have 50 people inside the building. And I was like, well, we've already canceled everything. And the guys, you can't really call us at like 9 o'clock at night the night before and say, can you be here at 10 in the morning? No, that wasn't going to happen. We were supposed to run September 19th. I've already canceled that. We still have 3,000 to 4,000 cases a day currently in Florida. School has just started this week. We've got dozens, hundreds of kids being sent home that have been are now quarantined and infected. So yeah, I'm super nervous about running. And well, I said to somebody the other day when they asked me, I could never live with myself. I have some fans that are in their 70s and 80s that have never missed a show. If one of them would come to our show and and I know they all have health conditions, and get ill or die, I would never forgive myself. I couldn't live with myself if I hurt anybody.
So, and I know we talked about this off camera, and I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody. When do you suspect the next time you will run?
January. We're looking at late January, early February. I'm talking to the venue who is not thrilled. They would love us to be there, and they really wanted us to be there. And I said it come down. Honestly, I talked to the guys. The guys didn't want to be there either. I think if I ran a show, I would have ran a show without champions, because I don't think either of my champions were comfortable enough to wrestle yet. I talked to them kind of hypothetically, and they were just like, Kim, I don't know. And this was 2 months ago, and they were, we're not really sure we want to do this. And
now, you're a businesswoman, quite obviously, because you're running this. Mm-hmm. What now, since January till today, what have you been doing wrestling wise, I guess, to kind of keep yourself going, keep you in the spotlight? What are some of the things you've been doing?
Well, we have the magazine, which started, we've got a digital magazine that comes out quarterly. We've been working on that. We relaunched a new edition of our trading cards. We came out with a classic trading card line. We added posters and leggings to our merchandise. We just redesigned our website this week, and we started a YouTube series. And in the next week or two, we're going to do a weekly Twitch series called Ignite Rewind. We're going to go back over the old shows, and it's either me or another person are going to be kind of narrating and talking about behind the scenes stuff that happened during the show.
Well, that's very cool. Now, do you have stuff on tape from like the very beginning, 2016? I
have every show but one. We had a camera break in 2016. So I'm missing a show. The show that I really wanted the most of all the shows I've done. I'm missing Timmy Lou Ratton's debut. So I was really bummed out.
Have you done any social media looking out for fan cam footage or anything like that?
We had some stills, but we didn't have any video. We had a lot of still shots and a couple gifts that came out of it, but nobody really did much. One wrestler taped his match, but it wasn't even the match. It wasn't a match. It was like a dark match, and so it's like, and the lighting was so bad, and the resolution, it wouldn't even be worth putting up.
Well, if anybody has any footage of Timmy Lou Retton's debut, we
Against
will
Kay.
throw in some wrestling travel merch as a reward. If anybody can go out there and have actual usable footage, we can maybe reconstruct some of it, because, hey, we love to help out independent wrestling, and that's good. So you have a lot of merch. Have merch sales been going all right during this COVID?
They kind of go in waves, to be honest. I've noticed we did really well when everybody got a stimulus check.
Right.
Like everybody bought, but you know, when the trading cards came out, we took a bump. It kind of cycles. We do really well like 1 week out of the month, and then we kind of trickle in stuff. We just went on to Etsy. We now have an Etsy store. And on the off chance that anything would ever happen to our website store, we're on Etsy. We have an Amazon merch store, and I believe we're on Printful. I think it's what it's called. So I actually have 4 actual store locations. So we're still getting shirts and stuff out there, and we're kind of working on stuff that's not all Ignite. Our biggest selling shirt is actually one that says indie wrestling is cheaper than therapy.
Let's go. I'm a huge collector. If I go to an indie show, and surprisingly, a lot of them don't have it, I'm always like, hey, I want a shirt of the promotion if I'm there, because I like the indie, and there's so many that we don't have one. I'm like, I must be the only guy asking. I want to talk to you about Twitch, only because I'm an old man. We did the WrestleMania pub crawl. We sponsored it, and it was supposed to be in Tampa, and all the money was going to go to Connor's Cure. So a little history on WT's lockdown sessions. Obviously, WrestleMania gets canceled. Jamie, who was running the pub crawl, gives me a message, says, I want to run a virtual pub crawl on Twitch for WrestleMania. Now, this is Wednesday at midnight, and as you know, this year WrestleMania was Saturday and Sunday. I was like, wrestling travel, we're in. We'll do anything we can to help. So we got a bunch of wrestlers, as many as we could that I knew at the time that I could reach out to just to do 30-second spots. We raised $3,300, probably more than that because I never did get the final, for the Red Cross. And then immediately after, I'm like, how can I pay it back? Mm-hmm. So I started doing these lockdown sessions. What are wrestlers doing? But more importantly, let's help them push their brand. And when I say their brand, I had explained a lot who you are, who your character is, and then push your merch as well. So we were on Twitch. I don't understand it. Are you technologically sound where you kind of know what Twitch is? I heard it was a video gaming thing, or how does it? It's like a channel?
We were actually the second official Twitch partner as a wrestling company. Wrestle Circus signed the day before we did, or I would have had those bragging rights, and you never heard the end of that. But we basically replay. I don't do a lot of live, and I don't play video games, even though, you know, I have some fantastic gamers that have wrestled for me. And I've actually went to gaming nights with them, and they just think I'm impaired because I can't work a controller. All my guys just jump up and down and up and down and kick and up and down and kick. And they're trying to explain it to them. I'm just like, just kill my character and take the controller.
I'm the same way. I had to go back to Nintendo with 2 buttons because I lacked it. I can't do an Xbox, this and that. And frankly, the graphics are so good that I can sit in a room and just watch people play and be perfectly happy. So, yeah, we've tried to expand our reach. We're obviously a travel company. We bring fans from around the world. We get their flight, their hotel, their tickets to different events. We have meet and greets with wrestlers. We've tried to improve our media part, but Twitch is something I'll have to keep asking about. I don't think it's something that we can handle right now because
it's really simple. To be honest, Twitch is super simple because they just came out with a new Twitch streaming platform platform. You don't have to do the OBS software and all that. I
All my
forget.
software is BS after a while because I
OBS,
don't
yeah.
know.
Open broadcast. You don't have to use open broadcast software and go through all these settings. They have their own little interface now that you can do which I'm using, which is super simple. And I think even my husband could use it. That's how easy it is. And because he's not the techie of the guy. He's plug into a spreadsheet kind of guy. But he plays video games on his iPad. But to get him to do anything, I'm like, hey, let me teach you how to edit a video. No. Let me teach you how to do this. No. I'm like,
That's kind of what being a promoter and kind of like my position. It's a lot of self-teaching and trying to figure out the best way.
I've learned how to do, I can run all the Adobe software. I do all of our graphics. I've been doing those for 2-3 years now. I do all of our video editing, all of our GIFs, everything you do, and run all of our social media. So yeah, when people ask me what I'm doing, well, let's see, a lot of platforms.
Yeah, people don't quite understand that even in this time where we're not running, what things that I'm doing and you're doing, it's like a 24-hour job. You know, you're up, especially when I'm
Absolutely.
in the U.S. and I got people in the U.K. and wrestling's happening in Japan. A few more questions because I want to be respectful of the time, and we've already been on for quite a bit. So when you return in January, and don't give away any spoilers, but have you guys been speaking about how you're going to come back, what you're going to do with your champions? Are you just going to start? I mean, I imagine you're trying to make this show pretty special.
The first show back, hopefully we'll be able to continue we don't really do storylines because we only run every 3 to 4 months. So we don't do very detailed storylines. And I know that people are so upset that we can't do the Montreal screw job every other show. But no, the champions will be defending. I've got a couple people that I'd like to bring in. And basically we're setting up to our probably April, May show, which we're going to have it, which will be, and that's not a spoiler because I've said this a lot. We're going to have a women's tag team division. So January is going to be like, we're back, here we are leading into the spring show, which will be a women's tag team tournament will be part of it.
You know what, like we talked, you and I have a lot in common with watching the old school and liking it. But the fact that you run every three, I miss, and I'm going to go back to AWA, where it was a show, you're watching it, and an announcer came out and said, I'm going to stick a microphone in front of so-and-so's face, ask him about this, and that naturally led to maybe a heel interrupting and stuff, but not this, let's go outside the security camera that just happened to be catching Kevin Nash lawn darting Rey Mysterio into the back of a side of a semi, which was cool. But I'm old school in a way that I want to believe. I want to suspend my disbelief. I went off at, was it SummerSlam? And he fixed it for Payback.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, if Dominic Mysterio got in the ring with me wearing a hood, I would have grabbed him by the hood and took him from pillar to post because it should be believable. When I was a kid, Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose debuted in the AWA with Paul E. Dangerously, the original Midnight Express, and Condrey had this lime green tiger stripe bandana that he wore around his neck. And as a kid, I was like, why is nobody not grabbing him by that or choking him out? It's just, I like things that make sense. I like that you run, and you might not consider it old school, but if you're not doing storylines, you're doing straight up professional wrestling at the venue. I love it. I don't know where I was going with that, Kim, but I love old school.
No, I did run monthly. The first 6 shows were monthly. It was a headache. We went to bi-monthly, and then when I said I was only going to run every 3 to 4 months, people told me, well, you can't do it. You can't be profitable. Nobody will come back. Everybody will wander off. And, you know, we've actually grown our Twitter, huge growth on our Twitter during lockdown. Because people got to realize that even though we run every 3 to 4 months, doesn't mean I'm going to disappear for 2 months and then come and go, hey, show on Saturday.
Let me ask you this, because this changed when I was out in Pennsylvania. I came back to Wisconsin. There was a promotion who, surprise, surprise, is defunct now. They were going to run my hometown. I said, hey, I'm an old dude. I'm retired, but I still love the business. You're running my hometown. I will help you hang up posters and flyers. And it was 3 days before the show when I'm like, I guess I'm old. Guess they don't do that anymore. Do you guys still do it?
Oh yeah.
Do you do a lot of social media? Do you do flyers, posters?
I do flyers. I do postcards. I go to networking events. I've been in the Ring of Fire Chili Challenge with a big display. I've been on comic cons. My husband yelled at me to stop being in the ER and handing out postcard flyers to the nurses, because they're like, what do you do? They always come in and they go, oh, what's your occupation? I go, I'm a pro wrestling promoter. Really here? And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, you know, IV'd up and, you know, drugged all up on my way to surgery, and I'm handing out flyers. My husband's like, seriously, would you stop doing that? And I'm like, I'm a promoter, baby.
My promoter life never stops. No, I'm glad to hear it, because that's what I don't see, at least up here in the North, is I want to know if I'm going to go to a show, I'm going to try to promote it for those who haven't been. So I want to get some of my storyline. Like, this is my champion. He's fighting this guy because they have a history here, this and that. Back in the day, when they would run up here in the 80s, our local news, they would buy time in our local newspaper and pitch an article about, oh, this guy's a manager. I remember ML Williams, but he hates being called buckwheat. Don't call him sleazy. And then we already were preconditioned. We never knew these guys. And we were like, sleazy. You know, we're going to call him that. It was great. But it just doesn't seem to happen, at least around here.
I've been fortunate that a lot of times when we're coming up on shows, that I have some friends that are reporters. And if there's not anything really big in the news cycle, I get a little bump that, you know, that we've got a show coming up. And it's usually the Friday before or a week before on Friday. It's a weekly newspaper, and it's kind of cool because it comes out in three different towns down here. So I like that. We did ads with I'm trying to think what it's called now. I'm blanking. It was Comcast Spotlight, and we aired a 30-second commercial, and it was so funny because you'll get a kick out of this. We aired it. It aired like 239 times, but it aired during SmackDown and Raw for 2 weeks at 8:45. So it airs at 8:45, you know, when they get through blah, blah, you know, promo, and they go to right before the last commercial break. We were in that commercial break. I had people calling my phone going, did you know that there's an ad about your show on there? Or were you aware of it? Well, I sure hope I was aware of it since we created it.
Oh, that's hilarious. Wrapping up here, 2 more questions, 2 really important ones. The last one is easy because I'm going to ask you to push all the stuff that we just talked about, and I want to give everybody the socials. The second one, coming from a promoter who runs independent wrestling, like I talked about before, a lot of people, I want to go to AEW, I want to go to WWE, and I'm like, that's great. If you want to sit in a stadium and watch that, that's great. But as an independent promoter and a lifelong fan of wrestling, Kim, what push to me as if I don't know, why would I want to go to an independent wrestling event? What's in it for me as a fan? Because I think there's so much, and I can't wait to hear
one-on-one interaction. You can't get that at the WWE because somebody brought a gun to a show. I could go to NXT, but I can't even talk to the guys I know. They can't come out and talk to me. I can't meet them before or after. I can't do pictures with them. You go to an independent show, they're out there, you know, interacting we've always got people fighting out into the fans. They're out there, you know, bashing each other off the bar. and they're posing for pictures after the show and selling merch and everything. It's that connection. And I had a friend that's a writer. She brought her daughter, and I'm walking around the ring during the show, and her daughter, who's 4 years old, is pinning Kylan King on the floor. That little girl still to this day, every time she sees me, she's like, "Where's Kylan?" Because you get that one-on-one interaction that you won't get sitting with 40,000 other people, and standing in line behind 200 to go to the bathroom at a WWE show.
And plus, if I'm going to boo one of your talents or cheer for them, that talent is going to hear me.
Yeah.
The crowd, and we've noticed this from the lack of crowds on TV. The crowd is a huge part of it. Plus, not to say, look at how many talents that you have worked with that have now gone on to work in bigger promotions. And like those fans you were saying at an NXT show, I wish I would have caught them on the indies. You got them right there. You got, you always have potential to see it. I think that's great to go, I saw this guy wrestle out of high school, and now he's on a major
What's really cool
promotion.
about is we run our shows on a Saturday at noon. So, I mean, being super family friendly, you don't have to worry about bringing the kids out. It is a brewery, but they're very family oriented. We're done. We run noon to 2, 2:30. They can come meet before, they can do meet and greet afterwards. They got their whole day ahead of them. And that's what I like, because we're one of the rare ones. And then what we do is we work with another company over toward Tampa called Punk Pro Wrestling. And so we may bring talent in from out of state. We split them. We're 3 hours apart. It's not a competition between us. So they do our show as whatever and then they go across at 8 o'clock and do another show. So it's double, it's a double, fun for the guys. And then generally sometimes every other month or every couple months, Fest runs on Sundays. So somebody can come down to Florida, do 3 shows just on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, that's outstanding for talent. That's got to be an outstanding draw. Well, we've come time for my final question. And trust me, Kim, we are going to do this again because I get so excited talking about wrestling. I BS'd half your interview with stuff, so I always want to do it again. But the most important question is, fans that are watching this, how can they follow you? Wait, you did a TED Talk. I started watching that before it was almost time to go. So you're doing all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that we can find about you. But where can we find you, and where can we find Ignite Wrestling, the merch, the magazines, everything? I want to plug away because I know a lot of people will want to, after seeing this, will want to check everything out. And that YouTube match, Desmond Xavier and Leo Rush, I'm on this as soon as I hang up.
Okay, me personally, you can find me on Twitch. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Instagram at Kim Artlip. Ignite Wrestling, we're on every platform as at Ignite Wrestling. Twitch, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Fight TV, Independent Wrestling TV, Pivot Share, and Roku. I always forget one, and I don't know which one it was, but I know I forgot something. And our website, ignitewrestling.com.
And I've got to follow you on TikTok. I created the TikTok a couple months ago.
I don't know how to use it. I watch it. I sit and watch it, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So I started one just to follow wrestling travel, and I thought, well, to help out, I've been to many shows. I take a lot of pictures and video. All I have is wrestling clips set to music that I think works and is cool. And I just hit 18,000 followers.
Wow.
One of my videos it's at 1.1 million. Now, I wish I was smart enough to know if that was worth any money anywhere, but I
don't understand TikTok.
And everybody's like, it's going to get banned any day now. So I'm like, all right, whatever.
Well, yeah, everybody's like, oh, don't get TikTok. The Chinese are spying on you. I'm like, but I like watching my friends dance and do goofy moves.
So much funny stuff on there. Like I said, even before I was obsessed with watching, just swiping through all the A lot of people got a lot of funny talents and then dances going on. Like, but I've never shown my face on it at all, and I've got 18,000 people that probably half of them are robots. Or to me, like, the Chinese spying on me is like saying, hey, somebody has access to your bank account. I'm like, boy, are they going to be disappointed.
Yeah, we made a joke the other day. We were talking something on Facebook Messenger, and it had to do with penis pumps. And now all my ads on every platform I go through is sexual stuff, and it's funny because we were just jokingly saying that somebody could use a penis pump, and so I'm not worried about the Chinese spying on me because it's that joke where I say something and Alexa laughs.
Well, when we get to the point where we have ads, we'll have to make sure that, I mean, I guess if the penis pump was going to pay well, we'd be all right with it. But when we get there, anyway, we can't end on a penis pump joke. I gotta say thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to kind of checking out the magazine and some of the other stuff. And you were telling me off camera, dry rubs and hot sauce.
Yeah, Ignite Inferno dry rub and hot sauce. We're currently on back order for hot sauce, but I'm hoping to have that in about 2 weeks. Well, actually, what happened was I just got an order in like 10 days ago, and I had so many pre-orders, it's already gone. I've already sold those 48 bottles. So now I'm waiting for the next order of 48 to arrive.
Good problem to have, obviously very popular. Kim Artlip, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't hang up on me because we're going to talk off camera here, but
Right.
Ignite Wrestling, I'm very excited to have you on and very excited to look at the product.
Thanks for having me on. I've had a lot of fun. I never get anybody that talks AWA, so this is fun for me.
I never do either. We might have to just do our weekly own AWA show. The guys at Wrestling Travel make fun of me. Nobody likes AWA. I'm like,
well, they're British. What do you expect?
I can't knock them too much. My all-time, everybody always asks, who's your favorite wrestler? And I'm going, you either never heard of him or you're just going to, but I go, and I'll defend it. It's Greg Gagne. It's always been Greg Gagne.
I told you that cool little fact about him. Yeah.
And I just wish I had contact. I'd love to. If I could just interview him, I shouldn't say this out loud because then people that don't like me will be like, great. I would be my last lockdown session. I wouldn't have to do anymore. Get Greg Gagne on there, and then people would probably do a GoFundMe to get me booted off the air. But Kim, thank you so much. Like I said, I have a terrible beginning and I have a hard time with closure. So this is the end of the show, and I will talk to you in just a few minutes afterwards. But thank you again.
All right, thanks.